Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Maria Blanco, and I am the tutor in Spanish and fellow in Spanish at Trinity College, and I also teach at Worcester College. I'm going to give you the briefest of introductions to the Modern Languages course, and I'm going to be focusing on Spanish and Portuguese because you're here for these two languages, because you have an interest in these two languages. As I go along, I'm going to, you will have the slides to kind of verify and ratify the information I'm giving you. So do feel free to stop the video at any point if I'm going a little bit too fast. I also I wanted to mention that I have my email address at the bottom of this slide. Just feel free to ask any questions, but you will also have an opportunity, I think, to have a Q&A with tutors. So my presentation is comprised of a series of conversations that I have with some people who would be ideal students, or perhaps the worst students possible in the Spanish and Portuguese courses. You're going to see a number of authors, a number of faces, all of whom we study here at Oxford in the Spanish and Portuguese courses. Okay, so your first question coming from Miguel de Cervantes, again, hypothetical student. What can I study in combination with Spanish and Portuguese at Oxford? Well, we have a number of different organizations. You can think about joint honors, which is where you study Spanish and Portuguese alongside another European language. That could be Czech, Slovak, French, German, Italian, modern Greek, Russian. And do mind that some colleges offer certain languages and others. So if you want to do a particular combination, you have to in a particular college, you have to check that we do offer those in the college that you want. Okay, and this information will all be available to you in the admissions page that you will see later on. You could also not do all joint honors. You could do joint schools, where you can study Spanish and Portuguese alongside a discipline like linguistics, English, history, philosophy, or classics. But you can also do a Spanish sole course, which is you just study Spanish, the only Spanish literature, which will also include Catalan and Galician within the course if you wish to do that. And I should also mention that you can be a beginner student in Portuguese. That is, that you can start Portuguese from scratch, or ab inicio as we call it, but you cannot do that with Spanish. Essa, a Portuguese author, is asking here, well, how is this course structured? Well, in the first year, you take what's called the preliminary course, the prelim. Everybody studies the same authors, the same texts as the core. You get a sampling of literature from different periods and different geographical areas. And then you take an exam at the end of the first year, and that's your gateway into what we call the FHS, which is the second, third, and the fourth year of the course. If the first year you do a little kind of survey of a lot of different literatures, in the second year you start specializing in the periods that you want. And I will say that this is not so for the Spanish sole students, because actually if you only study Spanish, then you actually will study the length of Spanish literary history and the history of the Spanish language. But so let's say that you're doing Spanish and Portuguese. Well, you start your finals course in the second year, the FHS, and you start refining your interest. The third year is spent abroad, and you have a number of opportunities in the year abroad that we're going to discuss in a minute. And in the fourth year, you complete your course, and you also have the opportunity to take what we call special subjects, which are more specific, and they are much more thematic courses. For example, Latin American cinema, European cinema, writing by women in Spain in the 20th century, and things like that. And I should say, at the final year, you also take your finals, and that's actually what's going to be your Oxford degree and your final mark. It stems from those exams in the fourth year, not from the exams in the first year, because the exams in the first year are only pass-fail. You only have to pass so that you can make it onto the rest of the course. Gabriel Garcia Marquez is asking, with a book on his head, what does this course cover? Well, In the first year, like I said, you're going to do set text from a number of periods, literary genres, and geographical areas. And you're going to learn how to talk about literature in terms of a number of historical, fascinating historical phenomena and literary phenomena. You're going to be looking at poetry, and you're going to be looking at the novel. You're going to be looking at the short story. In the second and fourth years, like I said, you start refining your interest a little bit more. You start working on what we call the period papers or the period courses. Let's say you really like Middle Age literature. Well, we have a medieval paper, we have a modern paper, we have a Golden Age paper in Spanish. You also get to learn the works of specific authors, what we call the prescribed authors. So some of the biggest names in Spanish and Portuguese and Latin American literature, you get to study their work in depth. That happens in the second and fourth year. If you're a linguistics student or you are a Spanish and Portuguese student with an interest in linguistics, you would study more ample courses in linguistics in that time. Like I said, in the fourth year, you can take those special subjects, which include a number of much more specific thematic areas, like cinema. You can also do Galician and Catalan in your fourth year, and you can do a range of topics on a number of themes. For example, we have a very popular paper on the literature of Moorish Spain, of Al-Andalus, and you have a broad range to choose from. Fernando Pessoa, the Portuguese author, is asking, well, what about studying the language itself? Well, a study of language comprises half of your course in Oxford. We teach grammar, we teach language through translation. We also teach grammar through we teach language through conversation classes, and also you get to learn the art of essay writing in a target language. Most of our instructors are native speakers, and I would say that if you are choosing to do Portuguese ab initio or beginner's Portuguese, you will have a very, very intensive language teaching course that begins even before the term begins in the first term of Oxford. So people who do Portuguese ab initio arrive a bit early, and they have this very, very intensive course, and then they continue with the rest of the group. And what's really interesting about Portuguese ab initio is that even though you are learning the language from scratch, a lot of our students, they get to the fourth year feeling that they are more confident speakers in Portuguese than even their own language. So it's a really, really great intensive course, and you will be proficient and you catch up very quickly. And I would also say that we focus a lot on writing, on written expression, because it's you will learn how to express yourself in a formal way and also in informal ways. And we target all of the different areas of language. And translation is a very, very interesting way that we teach language, because it teaches you not only about the language that you are learning, but it teaches you about regional differences. Spanish and Portuguese have immense regional differences depending on where you're standing. So you get to know about that. You get to know about historical usage of language. You also get to learn a lot about your own language. So I feel like translation classes are a bit like literary analysis as well. So they're really, really interesting courses, and it's definitely a core part of our course. The Chilean author Maria Bombal here is asking, well, what is my weekly workload? Well, it wouldn't be an Oxford degree if you didn't have to work really, really hard. We separate, you get to do language and literature and culture courses at the same time. So you have quite a bulk of work. It varies, but here's a little bit of a breakdown. In your first year, you should expect to take about 4 to 5 language classes a week, 1 to 2 tutorials or reading classes, and you should also attend about 4 lectures a week. That's on average, but it's not. This is not set in stone. And in your second or fourth year, you could expect 4 to 6 language classes, a tutorial, and 4 to 5 lectures. I will define my terms in a minute, but just so you know, I think it's very safe to say that the amount of contact hours that we have at Oxford far exceeds contact time in other institutions, just because we have all these different layers of classes that you have to take and attend and participate in. in relation to that, Dacuña is asking over here, he's a great author as well, what is a tutorial and what is a lecture? Because I've been talking about those two and as if they're different, and they absolutely are. Well, a tutorial is the core of the Oxford education. It's a discussion with your tutor on a topic that you're studying based on an essay that you have written prior to the meeting. It's normally a tutor and anywhere between 1 to 3 students in a tutorial. Lectures are bigger meetings where you have a lecturer standing at a podium and is just delivering information on a text and an author, on a topic. And they are absolutely vital because they supplement what you are learning in the tutorial. In the tutorial, you have been reading to write this essay. Well, the lecture gives you more background, gives you different ways to think about that text, give you further reading and more avenues to keep exploring. We also teach some courses, especially in the 4th year, through seminars, which are kind of middle-sized groupings, and there's much more open discussion, student-led presentations, and you learn from your peers and you learn to collaborate with your peers. We also have, starting in the 1st year, what we call commentary classes. This is when you are given a chunk of text, could be a poem, could be a piece of prose, and you learn to comment in detail on the style in which a text was written, on the word choice of an author. And so that is part of the curriculum from the beginning. So you learn how to do close reading of texts, and you do it very, very well from the beginning. Clarissa Lispector is asking, well, how is this course examined? In the 1st year, like I said, you take the prelim exams, and this is the breakdown of the prelim exams, 2 language papers, 2 literature papers. And if you're doing a Spanish Soul course, you also get to take papers on film, on the short story, and medieval literature. Great thing after you've gone through that grueling process of the prelim exam is that there are no exams in the 2nd or 3rd years. And the final exams, you take your finals. I should say that those you mentioned, I've been talking about those special subjects, which are the more specific thematic courses that you take in the final year. For many of those, you don't have to take an exam. What you actually do is that you submit a portfolio of essays that you have been preparing with the help of tutors, and you compile these essays, and that you get marked. That's your mark is based on the submission of the portfolio. Julio Cortázar, Argentine author, is asking what happens during the year abroad. Well, we have entered a new phase, so I will tell you what has happened, what students have done in the past, and what we can look forward to in the future. If you're doing 2 languages, let's say Spanish and Portuguese, you would split your time, hopefully more or less equally, between a Spanish-speaking country and a Portuguese-speaking country. In the past, students have done language assistantships in Europe or Latin America through the British Council language program. We have had, and we will have until the end of next year, Erasmus exchanges with Spanish universities. But of course, this is changing after Brexit, and we ask you to keep informed about changes. And obviously, our faculty is great about keeping students up to date. And as you know, if you have read the news, the Erasmus exchanges will be gone, but the government is looking to replace it with a similar system. A lot of our students choose to do professional internships or voluntary work instead of studying abroad in a different university. So that's definitely there. And I should say that if you are somebody who is interested in studying either of these languages together with Russian or Arabic, well, if you're doing beginners Russian or Arabic, you would spend your 2nd year abroad. And then you would still have a 4-year degree. You wouldn't do a year abroad in Spain, Portugal, etc. But you would be encouraged to spend summers in Spanish-speaking countries, for example. And that way you can get up to speed with the spoken language. There's no assessment during the year abroad, but a lot of tutors encourage their students to submit work so that they can keep on top of their essay writing, especially during this big period when you are not in the intense flow of writing essays at Oxford. So it's good to keep on top of that. Machado de Assis, Brazilian author, asks, how do I apply? This sounds very interesting. So here's some information. The admissions office gives you everything you need, what you need to do to apply, the tests that you have to take, the different colleges and what the different the courses that the colleges offer. But also please take a look at the Modern Languages website where you can learn more about who we are and what we do. Tests. Do I have, Carmen Laforet is asking, Spanish author is asking, do I have to take a test? Yes, you do. As part of the admissions process, you have to take a grammar test at school and you have to register for that. If you are doing something from scratch, you will be asked to take what's called a LAT, or a language aptitude test. And if you are doing joint honours, if you want to do joint honours, please check the website for details of tests in other faculties such as classics, English history, or whatever you wish to apply for. What else do you have to do to apply? Well, we also ask students to submit schoolwork. This should be marked schoolwork, hopefully, that you have done at school. We would like to see, if you're already studying a language, we would like to see coursework written in that language. If you're doing English, you're doing history, you can submit a second piece of coursework, and we were very happy to read that. So you would submit anywhere between 2 and 3 pieces of work. And if you are doing a joint honours, a joint school, you will need to check which schoolwork you have to submit for the other school, whether it's English, history, classics, or philosophy. Pablo Neruda is asking, well, tell me about this interview. What is the interview like? So here's a bit of a breakdown. There's a pattern. Everybody does things a little bit differently, but when we do interviews in person, we normally ask people to do a bit of a reading, and they are given about 30 minutes to do the reading before arriving into the interviewer's room. When you get to the interview, you will be asked questions about it. After that, you might be asked questions about your wider reading or any elements that you may have included in your UCAS form. And some of the interview will be conducted in the foreign language that you are applying to. Obviously, if you're applying for beginners Portuguese, nobody will ask you to speak Portuguese. Interviews normally last anywhere between 25 and 30 minutes. Now, last year when we were conducting interviews in December online because of the pandemic, we actually did little bitty readings within the interview itself. So you would given about 5 minutes to read something, and then we had a discussion with the students. For each language that you apply for, let's say you're doing French and Spanish, you will be given separate interviews for each language. And don't be surprised, even though you will have, at the time of application, submitted your first choice of college, you may also be interviewed in more than one college. And what are you looking for in a candidate, asks Samantha Schweblin, the Argentine author. Well, we're looking, as you can see, I've given you a lot of authors, a lot of pictures to look at of people who write. We are looking for people who will get the most and will enjoy reading and will get a lot out of a literature course. This is very, very important. We want to see evidence that you are a reader, that you like reading. And it doesn't have to be just Hispanic or Portuguese literature in your case. It could be any literature. I have plenty of conversations during interviews about texts that people are reading in English or in any other language. If you like film, we would love to hear you talk about film as well. We want to see people who can argue a point very clearly, who can defend their point, but also engage in conversation about it and be open to input about it. Also, if you already are studying a language, we want to make sure that you have a pretty good grammatical knowledge level in your delivery of the language, but we are not looking for absolute expertise in a language. We can work with you. So we want to see potential. Okay, and I think in your work, we want to make sure that in an essay, in your submitted essays from schoolwork, you can defend and write a point and make a good argument for something. And that's it for now. Thank you very much. Like I said, feel free to ask any questions to your the tutors who will be available for the Q&A sessions. But I just wanted to say, just feel free to email me, again, Maria Blanco at Trinity College. It's been a pleasure, and I hope that you end up applying to Oxford. Thank you very much.